you? Very good. Finally, I can say, Mark, here's Reshma.
Start. So, good evening, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to this webinar about studying medicine in Italy, where we're delighted to be joined by representation from Universita Cattolica del Sacro Cuore tonight. We have Aishah from the university and Reshma also from the university, if you count students as being representatives of the university, which of course we do this evening. And what you're going to get in this session is, well, I'm going to give a very quick overview of, well, studying medicine abroad. Naturally, I'm going to talk a little bit about the kind of concerns that you should have, the kind of things that you should be thinking about, what options you've got, just to set the broader picture. Then we'll throw over to Aishah to talk a little bit more about Cattolica in particular and the medicine program, as well. Obviously, we've got Reshma here who's going to provide her experience of actually studying this degree. And then we're going to throw it open to questions and answer from anybody who actually is on this webinar tonight. And with that in mind, please do use the Q&A function that you will find. I'm sure you're used to Zoom by now. Just move your cursor around if you can't see it. Use Q&A, don't use chat to ask us questions. And then we will try to get to everything once we've finished talking. But I dare say we're going to just go straight through with the presentations and questions will come later. So the first thing I'm going to do is just obviously share my screen with you. So, hopefully by now you are seeing a slide which says studying medicine in Italy, and partly obscured a logo from Universita Cattolica del Sacro Cuore. Now, who are we to be talking about studying medicine in Italy? Well, I think the university is rather obvious why they're here to talk about medicine. But what do we do? What is our role in this? Well, essentially, A-Star Future is an organization I set up about 15 years ago now to assist British students with the search for education in other countries. It's not entirely about medicine or dentistry, but those are subjects that keep us very, very busy. We firmly believe that studying abroad is a good thing. More people should be doing it. So essentially what we see our role in life as being is trying to point British students towards things that might be more interesting, more exciting than what you get in the UK. Now, obviously tonight we're talking about medicine. And as I already mentioned, this is the thing that keeps us busiest of all. Supply and demand is probably the simplest explanation for that. Lots and lots of people want to study medicine. Getting a place to do it in the UK is tough. So what are your options for medicine within the European Union? Well, actually, it might surprise you to learn that most of them, or the biggest single number of them, are in Italy. 18 medical programs at Italian universities. That's including both public and private. The next biggest country, if you like, in that sense is Poland, then Romania, Bulgaria, and that bottom one should say Czech Republic, not Bulgaria. Apologies for that. But those are the main places where you will be searching for options in the European Union. And I dare say that to most of you on this call, that won't come as much of a surprise. So what I'd like to do now is just look at some of the practical considerations that you should have when you are considering medical school at all. A lot of these things will be addressed specifically by Cattolica when Aishah is speaking, and also when Reshma is sharing her experience. But I thought before we get stuck into using Cattolica as an example, let's just look at the bigger practical issues you need to be aware of. What are the most important things to consider? Well, actually, the first two on this slide have got nothing to do with medicine at all. I really do think you've got to start with yourself. You've got to think about this. Living in another country for 6 to 7 years, it's a big step to take. Is that really something that you are prepared to do? Are you prepared to learn another language? Think about what this experience is going to be like for yourself. A lot of people will get fixated on, I must become a doctor or something like that. It's not helpful to think exclusively that way. But assuming you are committed to studying medicine, and this is your life stream and all the rest of it, and you're prepared to go through with it, the very next question that I put up on this slide is really what I believe is the single most important one you should ask any medical school that you apply to. Because getting in is complicated enough. Getting out the other end on time with a recognized qualification, that can sometimes be difficult as well. So I always advise you to ask, how many students are admitted into the first year and how many graduate on time? Now, if it's an insanely large number of people that are in the first year, that is not a good thing. If only a small percentage of those graduate on time, that is also not a good thing. So we encourage people to look for medical schools that maybe have 50, 80, even 160, 200 possibly, but where the vast majority of those will graduate in the time frame that they are expecting. And then another thing to bear in mind about recognition of qualifications, I know this is going to come up a lot later on in Cattolica's presentation, Brexit is throwing a slight spanner in the works there, but also things are changing in the UK as well with the new professional licensing exams coming in 2022. So actually, I don't think you would necessarily be at a disadvantage at Cattolica, but this is something that you would have to discuss with any particular medical school that you might be interested in going to. But then, of course, the big hurdle that you're all focused on right now is how on earth do you get in? This is clearly, a major issue. Now, what grades and subjects will you need? Well, there are no hard and fast rules there. I would say if you've got decent A-levels in biology and chemistry and one other related subject, perhaps, that's normal. That's perfectly okay. But often it isn't enough by itself. Because actually, the most important consideration for most medical schools in Europe and beyond is entrance exams. Very few of them will look at your A-levels and will look at an UCAT or a BMAT or an HPAT score or something like that and say, yep, that's enough. We can judge you based on that. There are one or two that will, but the vast majority are going to require you to take an entrance exam, and the vast majority of universities have their own entrance exams. So for example, if you're applying to medical schools in Poland, you're going to have a different exam for each and every one that you apply to. So that adds time, complexity, different curricula, different things you have to prep for if you want to do multiple exams. So you need to be aware of the amount of time and effort that will be required. Generally speaking, we find that the biology and chemistry elements of these exams are nothing for decent A-level students to get worried about. It's everything else that they might throw up alongside that you need to concern yourself with. Logic comes up a lot. Maths and or physics is also quite common. In terms of how you will take these entrance exams, well, obviously, we are in a slightly unusual situation at the moment that nobody can really go anywhere, which means that a lot of these exams are happening online. But that is not because medical schools want them to happen online. It's because this is the reality of the situation we all find ourselves in. So I think very quickly, post-COVID, we will revert to a situation where you might be looking at significant travel costs involved in going to a university's location to actually take the entrance exam there. Or, for example, in the UK, a lot of Czech, Bulgarian, Romanian medical schools, and indeed the Italians in normal times, will have test centres in London, possibly Manchester as well. But yeah, you are in a situation right now where it's normal for these things to be online, but don't assume that's the way it's going to stay. So having talked about entry requirements, having talked about all the things you need to be thinking about before you even start on this process, if you're going to go through with it, what is a sensible application strategy? Well, again, I don't intend for this to be comprehensive and covering every last aspect of medical education, not least because I'm not a medical professional. I can't tell you anything at all about the curriculum and things like that, and which specialisms you might want to go into. What I can do, however, is share the experience from having helped many people like yourself go through this process. And the first thing I would say is, much like here in the UK, there are no guarantees. Getting in abroad is not simple. You need to consider more than one option. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Whenever I see agents going on about, guaranteed admission, I guarantee you that's going to throw you back to the very first thing I mentioned. If there's guaranteed admission, that means hundreds, if not thousands of first-year students, lots and lots of dropouts. Is that a good thing? I would also say that, and this is a bit tricky actually, because I know that for a lot of people, you're balancing applying abroad with applying here in the UK, either for the first, the second, or sometimes even the third time. You might find yourself in a situation where you have to start applications abroad before you know exactly what's going on in the UK. That can happen. Wherever possible, though, I would encourage you to try and avoid that. I mean, always do your homework. It's good that you're talking to us now in January, even though you perhaps might not get your final answers from medical schools for a couple of months. So prepare yourself so that you are ready to move on the day you get that fourth rejection if it comes. Unfortunately, that is not always possible. We'll talk a little bit about more about timelines when it comes to Cattolica's entrance exam, because again, this is a fluid situation, but this is one of the very earliest medical schools that you could apply to. So actually, you know, Cattolica is likely, if you're going to apply to multiple options, it's likely to be the first one that you're going to apply for. Application deadlines and test dates, obviously, that's what I'm referring to there as well. And again, connected with keeping your options open in the UK and trying abroad as a wait and see approach, you know, maybe to have it as a backup plan. It's difficult if you get a place from a university abroad before you are ready to confirm it, because you absolutely will have to pay a deposit, and you will have to pay it quite quickly, and you will never see that money again if you don't go through with your place. So if you're not prepared to stump up the cash to guarantee a place once you've got one, don't apply. Other things to just bear in mind with regards to studying medicine abroad. Brexit, well, Brexit's changed a few things, obviously, quite a few. With regards to recognition of qualifications, I've already touched on that a little bit. But studying in Europe is not going to become more expensive because of Brexit, with one or two exceptions. The reason for this is because medical degrees are usually offered at private universities which charge broadly similar fees for everybody, or they're offered at public universities as a special program, meaning it has a special fee, which is what everybody pays anyway. The biggest issue we're going to have with Brexit, I think, and this is something I'm anticipating rather than have first-hand experience of right now, is that the situation in the past where when your results come out in August and you line up a place to study abroad within a matter of weeks, that is not going to be so easy in the future. I mean, in any case, it's kind of a nonsensical, you know, thing to do. Get your results and then all of a sudden change your mind and go and study in another country. But fair enough, you might find yourself in that situation. And again, coming back to what I said before, do your planning before results day. Don't just wake up on results day, call me, and then go, I must study abroad and get me a place in medical school somewhere, anywhere. That is not a good situation to be in. And the other reason why that's even worse this year is because you are now almost certainly going to have to, well, you will have to apply for visas if you are only British. And that is going to make it very, very difficult, probably impossible to get a place at the last minute. And obviously, if a European medical school has two equally qualified candidates and one of them has a Belgian passport and the other one has a British one, guess who they're going to take? And money is an important consideration. I've already mentioned that the fees won't necessarily be affected by Brexit, and they won't be affected by, you know, changes in student finance in the UK as well, simply because there are no loans in the UK. Now, this slide that I put up here, actually, this is taken from a petition that was sent to me yesterday by, I'm guessing, a parent or a sibling of somebody who's in the same situation as you, looking to go and study abroad. It's kind of a hopeless case, but if you do want to sign this petition, I will send you a link to it when we follow up tomorrow. Basically, trying to petition the government to provide loans for people to go and study health subjects abroad. I don't think it will succeed, let's be perfectly honest, but you know, it does at least shine a light on something that is a very real problem, because I'm aware for a lot of you today on this call, meeting the A-level requirements, taking the entrance exam, these are, you know, hard enough, but you're probably capable of doing them, but obviously also finding the money to go through with it. Look, let's just put it this way, I don't take it for granted. So anyway, that provides a brief overview of the kind of things that I think you really do need to think about if you want to go and study medicine abroad. And now we work with about 5 or 6 different medical schools, but today I'm going to restrict myself to only mentioning one of those, which is Cattolica. But again, we can send you out details of other options should you so desire. But what I'd really like to do now is invite Aishah to tell us a little bit more about why you should make Cattolica your first choice.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Hello and ciao, as we say here in Italy. Let me share my screen as well. Okay. Right. All right. Here it is. So as Mark said, I'm just going to repeat my name. My name's Aishah Pathak, and I have the great pleasure of being the UK area manager at Universita Cattolica for roughly about 9 years now. I always like to add a personal anecdote in presentations, try to cross those invisible boundaries that we've got. And I'll just, I think something particular, especially for a British targeted audience, is that I'm actually British myself. I grew up in Italy. I went to British school. I did my 3 A levels. I went to the UK for higher ed, and I moved back to Italy to work in Cattolica. So why I'm telling you this is that I think it's an interesting dichotomy. I've experienced the international education within Italian context, yet when I will be talking with much passion about Italy and Italian culture, it is coming from this particular perspective as well. Despite I regularly give webinars throughout the year on our medical school, I did find this webinar today, in January 2021, comes at a particularly critical time for all the things that Mark already mentioned. The B word, Brexit, obviously, how's COVID-19 impacting not just generally the pandemic, the universities overall, but also in Italy. Maybe you've looked at other Italian universities, maybe you haven't. But just sort of everything that's regarding exams and admission tests and how are they getting taken and when are they getting taken and what's going to happen if things get worse and what if I'm in a lockdown? These are all fair enough questions. And especially if you're in a final year student, and I know some of you following right now are, because I've had the pleasure to see some of you have already even applied, then obviously it's particularly relevant. But for younger students and parents or counselors that are also following us, hopefully all these critical areas won't matter to you as much for next year's entry, but this is a valuable opportunity to, of course, familiarize yourself with Cattolica. Why not with Italian, sort of our Italian medical culture, but also when it comes to student life, because we'll be having, of course, our super student, Reshma from 3rd year, and she's going to be, shining a light on everything that is student life, and she's better placed to comment on than I am. Not last but not least, I mean, I don't expect you to make a 6-year life choice in a 20-minute Zoom call, with a presentation. I mean, I'm happy to give hooks, right? I just want you to start thinking, and then obviously we can discuss Q&A and then all the other ways of getting in touch, another Zoom call if necessary. It is about having the right fit. So even I really pray that you're going to get multiple offers from different universities. But if you are at that point where you're having to put, as Mark said, your first installment down, or paying a deposit, probably not getting that money back if you change your mind, then obviously all the universities are going to claim they're the best ones. And they're all going to want you, but you're going to have to make, this is your homework that you're trying to understand if you're the right fit there. So without further ado, I'm just going to get to the crux of it, really. Why medicine at Cattolica? Because there are so many universities teaching medicine, so why us? These answers I particularly believe in. They're not necessarily stereotypical brochure answers. They're the ones that I've sort of experienced in the 9 years, and I genuinely believe what I'm about to say. They're not necessarily in order of importance, but they do all matter. I'm going to start with the pandemic. COVID, the C word, if you want to put it that way, in a context where, of course, we are fighting COVID. We are a medical school, so I thought it's interesting to shed light. Our program director, so the one that, will give you an introduction if you join us this year or next year, Luca Richelli. He's actually a pneumologist. He's the president of the Italian Pneumology Association, and his expertise, given that COVID goes and does its damage on the respiratory area, he is part of the scientific technical committee of the government. Okay, so this guy knows his stuff. I genuinely see him on TV while I'm having dinner at least once a week, and I never fails to leaves me starstruck. But interestingly enough, he, along with 18 other professors within the Faculty of Medicine, have also been awarded the Top Scientist Award last year. by the Public Life of Science Biology magazine, using parameters by Stanford University. And I think that's a fact that speaks for itself in terms of quality of our faculty and medics. You are being taught by leading global medics in their various fields. But again, returning to COVID, the other fact was that most hospitals around the world obviously had to open up a COVID wing. But Cattolica did something extra. We not only do we have the Policlinico Gemelli, which is the second largest hospital in the country, in the same physical campus space, but we actually opened up an entire 100% COVID hospital, which was the Columbus. So we've really, I dare say, we've really been our faculty, and why not our students who had to get shipped out fast, all our last year graduates. They had to, we've really been at the front line in fighting COVID. And I think that's, that really speaks out in terms of timing and with the pandemic. Now, more to the traditional stuff, but not least important, rankings. I'm sure most of you are big lovers of rankings. It's not the absolute parameter, it's a useful parameter. We are top 100 in the world by QS rankings 2020. If you think about how many universities, as I mentioned before, teach medicine in the world, to be top 150 is not necessarily easy. So I'm very proud of that fact. Generally, nationally, we are recognized, I dare say, as an Ivy League university as well. Again, compared to most Italian universities, I dare say, we really stand out for services to international students. I don't claim to be the ones that we teach best, even though you do teach pretty well, but it's really the services, because at the end of the day, you are not like an Italian student coming from, maybe just a 2-hour ride away. You are an international student in your culture, in your nationality, in your language. And whilst we're not perfect, we do go out of our way to sort of try and facilitate that experience for you. Specifically for medicine, as an example, we're going to be talking about the exam test, of course, afterwards. But for example, for non-EU students, we've switched to Proctoring Exam online. So you don't need to travel necessarily to Italy or to a closer test center. If you are a non-EU passport holder, you have a dedicated country area manager. So, despite being the largest private university in Europe, that you've got someone, which is myself, as a point of contact for at any point of your application process that will assist you. Being private university can mean different things in different parts of the world. In this case, within an Italian context, it's something to be associated to tradition and to prestige. So being private, again, how does this impact you? Not only does it impact, again, on having budget for investing in services for international students, but it also means we have freedom from the Italian government in when we offer our exam, which kind of entrance exam do we offer. So as Mark touched on, if you do apply, as I hope you do, or some of you already did, chances are that going from a chronological perspective, you will take the exam, probably one of the first ones within the Italian universities, so to do it. So you're going to take it early, and you're going to get, therefore, results out early, and you're going to get an offer, hopefully, earlier than any others. And that just helps, it just helps as well for you to obviously set up your life and sort of find your accommodation and do everything that you need to do, and probably just focus on your A-levels or whatever, your IB or whatever certificate you're working towards. Another element of prestige is our double degree. We are, as last time I checked, we're the only Italian university to have a double degree with another university in the United States, and that's Thomas Jefferson University in Philadelphia. Now, disclaimer, it is exceptionally hard. You're trying to squeeze into 6 years, 2 different degrees in probably the toughest subject out there. It is expensive, but I think it's a great honor to Cattolica that such a good university, medically speaking as well, is doing that. If many of you follow the American dream, maybe not going to the United States for whatever reason, that is an option there. And I've put a QR code, so if you wanted to open up the web page with the details and have a look, then obviously feel free to do so. Then last penultimate point, but by far that's one of my favorite points. Again, the hospital. If you're going to go to university to study medicine, try to do so with one that has a hospital on campus. It will mean early access to patients. So whilst around the world, you tend to go to see patients from 4th year, we start from the end of 3rd year. And it really does give a medical atmosphere. Sharing the same physical space on campus. You've got your hospital at this huge hospital, and you've got your teaching buildings all together. I remember a particular scene, like obviously I'm a staff member. When I go visit Rome campus, I open the canteen door when it's lunchtime, and I see, you know, medics and the senior students with their white coats having lunch. And I think it's a fantastic networking opportunity. Really sort of, if you're living the medical dream there. Small classes. So again, sort of referring back to what Mark said about, you know, the fact that some universities will take on board many students, possibly make it a bit easier to access university. And then you have so many people on course. But then what about the retention? We only have 80 students. I dare say this program, the MD in Medicine and Surgery, is sort of the cream of the crop, okay? It is a bit of an exclusive program. You are only 80 students maximum each year in class. It's broken down by nationality. It's 50 non-EU students, 30 EU students for a total of 80. And so far, out of all the additions, I can guarantee you that we have a pretty high retention rate. Our dropout rate is extremely low, which I think is saying something. Right, facts and figures for the number lovers. I thought it was particularly useful that in 2021, obviously we're celebrating the 100-year mark of Universita Cattolica. So hopefully, COVID permitting, there's going to be quite a bit of a buzz and celebration in September when courses, start for the new year. But either way, it's a special moment to join us. It is, as I said, the largest private university in Europe. So we're big. Rome is pretty big as well, and that's where primarily our medical campus is. But just, it's good to know as well that we do offer other subjects as well. And in fact, we're multidisciplinary, and we have 13 subjects in the top 300. Which again is saying something about sort of what we do. Every time I see student services that I put it up there, I think, well, but why spend words on this? Because again, frankly speaking, if you're going to look at, a continental Europe context, if you're going to look at the Italian context, these kind of services in an Anglo-Saxon university are taken for granted. It's not taken for granted where we are. We do work closely with international student associations so that you can meet, because it's all about, studying is important, but it is also important to socialize. So you have an option to meet other international students as well across other universities. Language support, you are going to be learning Italian as part of your MD program, but is it enough? I don't know. Probably not. It's probably going to be focusing on the medical aspect language of Italian. But we do offer other ways as well to integrate with that. Libraries, Rome has a particular something special that the other campuses across Italy don't have of Cattolica, because we have 4 campuses, across Italy. They're open late. Yeah, you're going to be studying probably a whole lot more than other university students and other subjects. So it's good to know that you've got that. You live more of a campus life in the traditional way that you might think about in the US and the UK about student campus life. Rome sort of offers that, blends in a bit more, but I'm sure Reshma can integrate that with that. Sport facilities. I'm in Milan, in the Milan campus. We don't have the space to offer for sport facilities. In Rome, where you would be learning, yes, you do. We have tennis courts, basketball courts, we have a gym, rock climbing wall. There's plenty of options there. Football, obviously, or soccer. That's like religion in Italy. So obviously for those of you, and I know obviously England also cares very much about that. So if you want to carry on with that as well, go for it. Healthcare center. I know you're budding medics, but of course you might need assistance now and again. And we have that on campus as well. And again, differently to our Milan campus, for example, there is accommodation very closely to campus as well. Helps, right? Because you're probably going to be doing a lot of practice in the hospital. You don't want to be running around Rome. Granted, it's not as big as London, but it's still a big city, and you don't want to be running around too much, I guess, on public transport. So it is handy to live on campus, or at least very close to it. But now I'm actually going to leave the floor to Mark. I thought it was going to be more interesting if Mark wanted to ask a couple of questions to our Canadian student Reshma, who's on current 3rd year of the MD medicine program surgery. She's halfway. I'm so proud, especially because she's been managing to do this with a pandemic in course. So I'm going to mute myself, and I think I'm going to leave the floor to you, Mark.
Okay, thank you very much, Aishah, for that overview. I'm just going to pull up this screen right now. Reshma, thanks very much for joining us. Obviously, you're on a different continent to us right now. So perhaps you can explain, you're a Canadian student and you're studying in Milan, or well, sorry, in Rome ordinarily. What was it that made you decide to go and study in Italy and Cattolica in particular in the first place?
Yes, so hi guys. Thank you so much for having me first and foremost. It's pretty early here. It's like I think we're around 8 hours behind you guys. But so to answer your question, Cattolica, we really, in Canada, we don't really have agencies. We don't have recruiters. We don't have high school counselors to really guide us on how to pursue a medical career or just any career or any degree in particular. Abroad. Most of the things that we do here are pretty much, I would say, like study abroad, like a semester abroad or a year abroad, and then we would come back and finish our degree in Canada. But this was honestly word of mouth. So we just, from connecting with other people and networking, we were able to discover the university, and I ended up looking into it and researching it. And for all the reasons that Aishah has mentioned, is pretty much the factors that helped me kind of determine if this is what I wanted to apply for. So I looked into it. I mean, the university is amazing. The hospital is incredible, extremely reputable. So are our professors. So for those reasons, I was really interested in the course. So that's why I applied in the first place. And it's been, I think, a pretty good decision. So I'm pretty happy about it for sure.
Good stuff. So what I mean, obviously you're not at the university right now because of all the rest of it, but how did you how did you find the transition to living in Rome, which is, well, it's kind of a chaotic city, isn't it? A little bit.
Yeah,
certainly.
I would say.
Yeah.
So I think, like, for me, because I'm from Calgary, it's a smaller city versus like Rome has just so much culture and there's so much going on, where Calgary is very quiet and it's a very calm type of city. So it was a bit of a transition, but I would say it was a fun transition. From my year, we had 50 students total. So it was 30 international and 20 Italian students. So it was a lot smaller than what we'll have currently, which is like 80. So to adjust to it, it was great because we had so many people that we could adjust with, right? So everyone was, 30 people are international. So we kind of helped guide each other. The Italian students helped us. And I think we just explored the whole city, and student life is amazing. Like Aishah also mentioned, like student life is so much more prevalent in this university, just with like orientation week, getting us, integrated into what it's like to live in Italy and accommodation, and then as well as in students, like in our university. So the help was there, and my friends were, making friends, and everything was just so amazing that the transition was honestly very, very easy. So it's been amazing for sure.
But how do you find like the workload of the course? I mean, obviously medicine is, it's a profession, it's challenging and all the rest of it. Is it manageable? I mean, do you have any sense that you're maybe working harder in Italy than you would be if you'd stayed at home or something like that?
Yeah, so for Canada, I would say the medical process is completely different to the process that we have in Italy. So in Canada and in North America, just in general, we have to do a 4-year pre-med, so 4-year bachelor degree. It can be in anything. You can do science, you can do business, you can do arts, you can do music, and then you have to apply and do your MCATs. And then from there, you have to do volunteering, you have to do research, a lot of things, and then apply for the medical school. And then medical school is another 4 years, right?
Right.
So in Italy, it's that 6-year program, and it's very content heavy for sure. I'm gonna say it's like the saying, like you're drinking out of a fire hose. It's just so much coming at you at one time. But I think what it is over time, you learn how to manage it. And over time, you're gonna learn from your mistakes. I think mistakes are your biggest lessons. And you really understand what works for you and what doesn't work for you. When I studied in Italy versus how I studied in Canada is extremely different. And it's different for everybody who's an international or everybody who's in our class. Something that would work for me is not going to work for somebody else who's in my class or one of my friends or colleagues. So I think over time, you're going to learn what works for you, and you're going to, like, I'm a visual learner. So I can't stand reading a textbook for a long time, right? Versus when we have practicals in first year and second year, we were able to work with the senior student to dissect a heart. So that taught me so much more than a textbook would. So it's really just working towards what works best for you. So I would say that's how I've been handling it.
And just talking about, you mentioned earlier, obviously having lots of international friends. Could you give us any kind of sense as to where people come from in your kind of group of friends? I mean, what kind of nationalities are you meeting or friends?
Yeah. So we've got a smorgasbord of people. A lot of my friends are from Dubai. A lot of people in my class are from Dubai. There's a couple of students from different places. I think we have a couple new students as well from different places, which we haven't met due to the whole pandemic, but Brazil, Slovenia, we have people from, a lot of people are based in Dubai. We have somebody from the States, from America. And different people from different courses as well. We have a lot of people from London, we have a lot of people from the UK. So places like that, it's really, when we say international, it is very international. So it's amazing. You get to see, not only experience Rome's culture, but you get to experience everybody else's culture in your class, right? So
great.
Cool.
And how do you see that from, I mean, obviously you're a native English speaker. Is there any kind of issue around a language at all, obviously being in Italy, or are you totally happy with the way everything goes from a teaching perspective, your fellow classmates' ability to keep up and things like that? How does that impact you?
Yeah, so it's been really good because everything is an English taught class. So all the professors speak English and everything's taught in English as well. I think in terms of that language barrier, it would be when you're outside of the university. So not a lot of people do speak. I mean, if you go to the grocery store, not everyone speaks English. So those little things, or grabbing a taxi or something like that. But we do have the facilities to, learn Italian a lot quicker. We have classes that we have to take for the first and second year. We're still taking them in the third year. And I think, honestly, it's literally, I just immersed myself into the culture with my friends, being in Rome, there's always something to do. So whether it's going to a restaurant and ordering food, you're going to do that in Italian. So there you go. You're going to learn how to order food in Italy, right? Or going to the grocery store and being able to pay for your groceries. You're going to have to learn how to, so those little things really make a difference. And I think that's the part where I learned Italian more than any other aspect. So
I guess there is also the other side with the Italian as well, that presumably also at some point in time when you get back there, you are going to need it, aren't you, when you go into how do you feel about meeting the standard required to do that? Is that something you think you can just take in your stride, or
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's kind of nerve-wracking, especially when you need to go into the hospital and you need to be able to understand the patients and speak at least conversationally to a patient or a doctor. But, our professors are incredible. Our professors are amazing. And even if there is a language barrier, they're more than happy to, it's going to take some time, right? To understand or learn a new language. It's a whole different thing. You're not only learning anatomy, physiology, histology, biopathology, all of that, you're also learning a whole new language. So it's going to take time, and it's still taking me time, right? So I think we have the facilities, like I said, to help guide that as well. And I know that even if there's something that I don't know or something that I need to be clear, like I need clarification on, that I have the professors and the students to help facilitate that and help guide that. So
okay,
I'm going okay.
right. And I know that when you applied, as you mentioned, the number of students was different, but also the application process was quite significantly different as well. So I think I do have a lot of questions about that, and I'm sure other participants will as well. But perhaps we'll come back to that a little bit later on when we bring Aishah back into this. But the other question I really wanted to ask you, Reshma, was you're doing this degree in Italy. What are your longer term objectives in terms of where you want to end up? And do you see that the Cattolica degree will enable you to do that? Or are you anticipating issues around recognition or anything like that? I mean, what are your longer term plans?
That's a really good question, because I am kind of at a point where, or I've always been at a point, the reason that I even decided that I wanted to do a degree abroad is because I just want to explore. I want to travel the world, right? So I know that this degree will take me there and will help me with that. Like we stated, that it is one of the top 150 universities or medical universities, and it's very recognized. Europe gives me the opportunity to go anywhere, to be honest, anywhere in Europe, right? As far as what I want to do long term, I'm not 100% sure. What I know for a fact that I want to do is I want to use my degree as kind of a foundation to work with nonprofit organizations. So work with any charity organizations, the Red Cross, Doctors Without Borders, places like things like that, that could help me, you know, that would give me the opportunity to travel and do what I love doing, which is volunteering, right? So, and I think that this degree is going to help me with that. It's going to give me all the knowledge and all the exploration that I need. Like we have study abroad programs, right, that can help guide me in doing that as well, right? So I think the reputation and like the recognition of the university and the degree is international, it's worldwide. So I'm not worried about that for sure.
Okay, so you're at a good medical school. I mean, obviously medicine, as everybody will know, is a hugely desirable skill set to have. And if you have a qualification in that field, you have options, let's put it that way. And it provides you with plentiful options. Now, just before I throw it back open to anybody, because obviously I've asked Reshma a load of questions, you are allowed to as well. Please do stick stuff in the Q&A and we will get to that in just 1 minute. But I think I'd like to bring Aishah back in right now just to talk. There was a little bit more you were going to say about was it the application? I can't remember. It was the application process, I think. Wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, we've, let me go back to also showing my screen. We've done so much now in terms of the, sort of, I feel like Reshma was like sort of taking me to my memories down in Rome. So we've done so much of the qualitative, dreamy stuff, but now we need to get to the hardcore, dry stuff that is so necessary when it comes to applications. So yes, let's go through that a second. So let me go full screen. Okay, so entry requirements. Funnily enough, I always get this reaction when I say, I don't technically need you to submit, you know, any fantastic grades. And that's because like, what? How can you be such a good school with that? Simply, or not so simply, it's because we have the entrance exam, which is the big filter on who gets an offer. And when and who doesn't. There is obviously some basic requirements. The basic requirements, I've taken what I expected to be the top two diplomas of people currently following us. So A-levels and the IB. If you're doing A-levels, we do need 3 A-levels. Even though you won't see officially that the university will never ask you which subject you're doing. I know from talking to Reshma and other students that obviously, and it is quite logical, if you're doing chemistry and biology, you're just going to get, you know, that sort of experience more and that knowledge that can help you on the entrance exam performance. So, you know, that is preferable, but by no means is it, you know, compulsory. And in terms of doing the IB, we require the full IB diploma, so IB certificates are not allowed. They're not sufficient to get an offer, and you need to have a minimum 24 points. The great thing, I'm a big fan of Cattolica in general with our system, because we don't do conditional offers based on points or A-level grades, which is so different from the UK. So that's also something nice, in the sense that if you get an offer, probably your only condition would be to pass your 3 A-levels, to pass your IB diploma, but you wouldn't get one based on subjects or specific grades. The entrance exam is the big filter. So a little bit about that. First thing, again, if you have already started researching about other Italian universities teaching medicine, you'll see that the majority will do the IMAT, especially public universities. That is not the case with Cattolica. Cattolica has its own entrance exam, which is tough, needless to say. 65 multiple choice questions in 65 minutes. You've seen the breakdown there. You see that, of course, there is a focus on sciences, so biology first, chemistry, and then physics and maths. And then there is a big chunk. Italians love their psychoattitudinal subjects. And that's also one of the reasons why we don't ask more subject-specific grades or anything, because psychoattitudinal really does come out of practice. So it's similar to the IMAT in terms of content, but it is not the IMAT. The other key thing to note is that it's different dates for EU and non-EU nationals. So your passport, okay? Now, about that. First off to say, what with Brexit going on, right now, as of now, for 2021, until further notice, UK nationals are considered EU students, all right? So Brexit in this sense hasn't affected the application process as of yet. What has affected the application process is COVID, the pandemic. So I loved the adjective that Mark used at the start, which was things are fluid. Correct. Before the latest developments and the second wave hit, the original date for the entrance exam was February 26th. All right, for those students that are starting in September 2021 and that want to apply for that. Right now, with our latest government issues, in terms of everything that we're doing, and we've also got some sort of restrictions with lockdown and stuff, we can't probably get that done. So the new date is to be confirmed. It certainly won't be before February 26th. We're looking at a later date. This will be communicated officially in February. The good news, I would say, for students is that, if the majority of you are EU, so if you're British nationals and you've got a European passport, you have a longer time to practice, because you practice through the online simulator that you get access to once you submit your application. So that's great. Let's say that's a little gift COVID gives us. But so I would say, even though we don't have the date yet, 100%, and the modality, if it's going to be online like the non-EUs, or if it's going to be in a test center in London or any of the other test centers that we have, because we have several across the world, I dare say, don't wait to apply, simply because, again, you can start practicing, okay? It'll give you a little more time to get to the day, regardless of whether it's in person, in a test center, or online, and practice. Instead, if we have some non-EU passport holders, regardless of where you live, then in that case, for now, you are untouched, in the sense that the entrance exam is on the March 30th, so towards the end of March, and it will be online. That is guaranteed. It will be via proctoring, so that's nice that you don't need to travel somewhere. Okay, but of course, I can understand with all these dates and uncertainty, you might need some more clarification. So happy to go through this again at Q&A. Right, money matters, especially if any parents are listening to us right now. Tuition fee in Cattolica is calculated upon where you pay taxes, therefore your residency, and not your nationality. So your nationality determines your application procedure. It determines which ranking you are in. So, you know, if you're in the EU or non-EU ranking, but when it comes to money, it's where you are living. So as we said, if, for example, most of you are living in the UK and that is still considered EU, even for financial purposes, then your tuition fee will be per annum calculated based on income. And that's anything between 7,000 to 16,000 euros a year. Okay. If any of you are following us and producing taxes, or your family outside the EU, I know that we had some signups from also Latin America. In that case, then you'll be given the flat tuition fee of 15,800 euros per annum. Let's not forget there are living costs, and these are estimated from 10 to 12,000 euros a year. Okay, so let's say on average, general budget, you're probably looking at about a 28,000 expense per year. Okay, and that will cover your tuition fee and your living expenses, so your accommodation, your food, your social life, your books, your transport, all of that. Just a quick word on financial aid. We don't have our own scholarships, okay, but we do have the option of applying for a financial aid that is, it is the Italian government, the region of Lazio, which is where Rome is based, matched with Cattolica's investing money in that. And that is what we called diritto allo studio, translated, it's the right to study. And that is, that is given and managed by Educat. Now, the great news is that if you apply for it, your entire tuition fee is waived. And, we're talking what, just under 16 grand, like that's pretty nice. It's not all perfect. So I do want to stress with expectation management, what's the downside? You can only apply for it once you're here. There is increasingly more and more students applying. Okay, so the competition is even tougher. The funds are not unlimited, they are limited. So obviously it's going to be even more requests for a certain, predetermined figure, and the results are published late. So there's no way of knowing before joining us whether you have that or not. And it is a risk, because if you apply and you don't have the finance, what happens then? What if you don't get it? I would hate for you to have to leave halfway through the year or halfway through the, through your course. So as Mark, again, I'm backing up with Mark here when saying, think about finances carefully and really only sort of go for it, confirm your offer. If you think you're gonna, if you're gonna have the finances, even sort of tightening the belt and making some sacrifices, only then, do I suggest you sort of make that commitment. Right, that's pretty much me done. Here I've just put our contact details, obviously email, website. There is a dedicated website for students like you, i.e. that are not studying the Italian sort of higher education. So make sure you sort of go through that website. And then of course, Facebook and Instagram are just great ways to sort of see what the university is going and getting up to. It's also a nice way to get in touch with future students, right? So you could just say like, I've got an offer for medicine, I'm coming to Rome. If you want to sort of start knowing people, albeit virtually, then that could be a good option. But that's basically me done. I'd rather leave the space for Q&A. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Actually, Mark, can you do that for me?
I can.
There we go. Done it.
You've got
right.
it.
Okay. So at least we don't distract.
Right. Well, thank you, Aishah. And hopefully that gives all of you now an overview as to what the application process is and how the entrance exam is going to work this year, bearing in mind the uncertainty with COVID. But one thing I do expressly want to say, just from a British perspective, for those of you who are applying here in the UK, there have been two issues in the past in terms of getting British students into Cattolica, to be honest. One is it's difficult. There aren't that many places. It's tough. You're going to have to do well in the exam. There's no denying that. The other one, of course, is that the exam is usually before you get that fourth rejection. So that commitment of having to pay 4,000 euros, I believe the deposit is in the case of Cattolica, not everybody is willing to do that. If there's still an outside chance they might get a place in the UK. Now, on the slide that Aishah brought up there, showing the decision day for EU nationals, it's currently the 4th of March. It isn't going to be the 4th of March. We already know that. It's going to be later. If it's even 2 weeks later, that takes you after if you like, the big date in my calendar, which is the Liverpool rejection and offer day, which is usually the last one. It's usually around the 20th of March. That's usually when my phones go crazy and ring off the hook. And I think you're going to find that actually the Cattolica decision day will coincide very, very nicely with that. But the prep for the entrance exam you're going to have to do before you know what's going on in the UK. So yeah, you can work for it, and you can, this year only, perhaps have a minor advantage as a result, a gift from COVID, let's put it that way. Now, before we get through the 10 questions and we've got in the Q&A right now, and please add more in. The very first question I want to ask is actually to Reshma, and that is about living costs in Rome. When Aishah was talking about the amounts of money involved, does that reflect the reality from your point of view?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I'll tell you a little bit about how the accommodation works in Italy for us at our university. So we have just a accommodation, a hostel or a dorm for just the international girls that is around 20 minutes away. And I think we have a new one that was just opened up last year for the new international boys that were coming in. So that's, I think, maybe 5 minutes away from ours. So accommodation and stuff are very close. But yeah, the fees and everything are very accurate. You need, for sure.
And I will just say, actually, because you brought up halls of residence there, and this is a big deal from a British context, does not actually happen that often in Italy. So it's quite unusual for a university to have residences. Of the medical schools that I know of, I would say only Humanitas and Cattolica in Italy are going to have anything like that. Elsewhere, you're going to be out there sharing an apartment, which of course you probably would do after the first year or two anyway. But if you're looking for something that approximates what you'd expect to find in a medical school in the UK in terms of being grouped together with your fellow students, you will find it at Cattolica. You won't find it most other places. So I'm now going to open up the Q&A. Forgive me while I sort of start from the top and work my way down. So things might be a little bit confused for a second. I'm actually seeing the first few questions we've got up here are ones that I believe we'd say we'd already asked about the deadlines for the entrance exam and the application. Sorry, there is a supplementary part to this one. I have a biochemistry degree alongside my A-levels. Does this affect the need for an entrance exam? No, it doesn't. As Aishah has pointed out, they don't go big, big on what your A-levels are or your IB for that matter. Everybody is ranked according to the one test. Part of the reason for this is they get so many candidates from all around the world. And how could you possibly compare somebody who's come out of the Canadian school system with somebody who's come from India or Turkey or something like that? That is impossible. The thing that proves your level is the entrance exam. So there is no exemption from that based on having a degree in addition to having A-levels. It's also very, very difficult to get credit recognition, I would suggest. So the fact that you've already got a degree is unlikely to shorten the time you're at university. Cattolica does occasionally have transfer opportunities into the second and third year. They are only for people who've started medical degrees elsewhere within the EU and want to move to Rome. It doesn't work if you've completed biomed science in the UK, for example. That isn't a possibility, I'm afraid. You'd be starting from the first year. Anything else you want to say on that, Aishah, or is that fair enough in terms of?
That is very fair enough. I dare say if you've got, I mean, obviously you need to compare the curriculum, but if you do have some subjects that you see are, could ask credit transfer for, with the lowest of expectations, because it is exceptionally hard, especially on medicine. I dare say, that is something you can point out. Asking is free. You could ask that, your credits get recognized, and maybe that might happen. It doesn't mean you could transfer to a second year. That's not the same, but it may shorten. It may, exempt you from taking maybe that particular exam. It's not necessarily all sort of, thrown in the bin, you know what I mean? You may get something recognized, but either way, I strongly suggest you to apply, just because you've already experienced it, compared to, your average 18-year-old starting. Also, we have even 17-year-olds starting such a difficult subject from scratch. Obviously you've obviously experienced, some of your university life, some of these topics, you're probably, in a well put position, you know, in terms of sort of experiencing, managing the online or in presence, the calendar, the curriculum. So, you know, it's something that beneficial for you probably, even though there may not be any particular academic recognition, or maybe yes, but not so much.
Okay. Now, this next question, I think, is a slight misunderstanding. He was asking, is the double degree compulsory with Thomas Jefferson and Cattolica? Absolutely not. In fact, it's extremely unlikely you're going to do both, but it is there as an option. So it's certainly not the case that you have to do both. Let's put it that way. Now, this next question that's here, this one is specifically for Reshma right now, and it specifically relates to the pandemic and online learning. How smoothly did that go in reality? I mean, how do you feel about it in terms of you are the only person on this call who has real experience of sitting in a classroom at Cattolica and sitting on the end of a phone line with Cattolica as well in terms of teaching? How does it compare? How's your experience of that been?
So that is a really good question. With COVID and e-learning, just in general, it's been difficult because you never thought that you would study medicine online, right? That's something that you don't really consider. But with everything going on, I think more than anything, I would give credit to the professors, because they have been so great and they've been everyone has to adjust at this point, right? So for them to be able to adjust and teach in an empty classroom with a Zoom call, or well, we use Blackboard, but an online call, it's been pretty good. And I've been pretty surprised as to how it's been handled. So it's been great. The labs and the practicals have been a little bit tough because, you know, those are things that we should be doing hands-on, right? So for second year, when we had to do certain things online, for example, first aid and nursing practice, where we get to learn how to draw blood, or we learn how to do CPR or do head-to-toe assessments and things like that. Those are practical. You need to be in the classroom with the professors doing it, but with the situation going on, it hasn't been that easy. So that we haven't been able to experience. But besides that, the professors are available anytime with emails. For me, being 8 hours behind, it's been a little bit tricky because when classes start at 8:30 for them, it's time for me to go to bed. It's around like 12 o'clock at night, right? 1 o'clock in the morning. So they've been extremely accommodating to my situation specifically, and just answering emails, they've been great. So as much as it sucks that hands-on physical experience isn't there, I think the way that the university and the teachers have handled and professors have handled online learning has been great. We haven't lost anything in terms of the practicals and labs, but in terms of the lectures and learning, we haven't lost anything, in my opinion.
Good. Well, hopefully you'll be back in the classroom now before too long. So that's all.
Yeah.
But good to know that you're at least getting your education. You know, COVID isn't putting a pause on it. Now, this next question is about working in Italy while studying as an international student. And it's been asked by somebody who doesn't have an EU passport. So as an international student, can you work in Italy while you are studying? And I'm going to say there are several elements to this particular question. The first one is quite simply time. Are you going to have enough to be able to work? Reshma, do any of your fellow classmates really have significant part-time work at all?
No, so not that I know of. Like I said, the university, I mean, I don't know anything about working abroad. I mean, in Italy, I haven't looked into it, but
I'm going to come to Aishah with that in a moment, don't worry.
Yeah,
I'm asking you about the reality, which is that even if you could, you really don't want to be putting that stress on yourself.
You don't want to, exactly. And I was just going to say, because it is very content heavy, and you know, you're gonna be working and studying a lot of the time, I would say. I mean, there's time for fun, there's room for, obviously, the opportunities and everything that we have through our university, like events and stuff, orientation, all of that we get to go to, and we get to have fun and all of that. But, you know, I think there's so much time that it'll be really hard to work and have that commitment, right? Because if you're working, it's like part-time, it's that set schedule. And with medicine and how tricky and dense it can be, it's hard to kind of navigate both at the same time.
I mean, this,
in
I
my
think,
opinion,
universally true of medicine wherever you choose to study it. But just from a legality point of view, Aishah, can international students work in Italy?
Right. I was going to say two points there. I think you said the person asking is non-EU. So if you don't have a European passport, you are allowed to work 20 hours part-time officially per week. Okay. So imagine you're a superstar. You can, you're set on studying. You can manage your workload and work fine. Then the next reality, the practical element is, do you know Italian? Because ultimately, even if it is, bartending in one of the million zillion clubs in Rome, or, in one of the bars or the restaurants, if you don't understand, what your client is asking, then, you're not going to get very far. So by all means, yes, you can, but my top tip would be, other than understanding, can you manage your workload, is, make that extra effort to maybe take the first year, 2 years. I mean, it's personal how long, one takes to learn language to basic level, but, learn Italian, because that's what you're going to need. We are a non-English speaking country. So outside the university walls, you are confronted with a majority of Italian to manage, basically.
So yeah, there's language, practical, all sorts of issues there with that one. Now, these next couple of questions I'm going to come to from Rahul. They relate to one that I'm afraid I don't actually know the answer to. What's the difference between an MD and an MBBS qualification, and the implications to a UK student? I'm going to plead a little bit of ignorance there and suggest you take that up with the General Medical Council. They will very clearly be able to show you what qualifications are, which Italian qualifications and equivalencies there are here in the UK. But you did have a supplementary question to that, which is, as this is a 6-year course, will a UK student be exempt from FY1? And the answer to that is no, but you will already have done it. In most European countries, medicine is a 6-year degree, but it's actually 5 years of study and 1 year of residency before you're awarded your degree. Whereas in the UK, it's 5 years, you get awarded your degree, and then you do 2 years of residency. So yes, in effect, it is exactly the same. The difference is that in the UK, you're awarded your degree before you've done your FY1, whereas in Italy, you're awarded it afterwards. I would say that's probably the most appropriate way to look at it. So essentially, I would describe medicine, the journey from start to finish, assuming you're not going on to specializations or whatever, is 7 years, basically. And the fact that it's a 6-year degree rather than a 5-year degree, in the greater scheme of things, is neither here nor there. But yes, it is a very, very different way of working than what you would find here in the, at a British medical school. Anything, Aishah, you'd like to throw in on either of those points about differences between qualifications?
No, credits. Just don't forget, it's not an Italian degree, it's a European degree, because you are getting awarded European credits. That's why we call them ECTS. So when you will be talking to the medical council or someone more expert on different nationalities and recognitions, the key thing to say is you're going to get, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's 360 European credits. What do I need to do? What can I do with those credits?
I think while we're on that subject as well, we should probably mention the United States and the USMLE as well, because, I mean, quite aside from the Thomas Jefferson program, your degree enables students to do the USMLE Part 1s at the end of 4th year, is that right?
Yeah, so we offer sort of a prep course, essentially a training course for the iPhone, which is basically same, they tell me, as the USMLE. And you can take the USMLE Step 1, Step 2 in Rome, so you don't actually need to go to the United States to sit that exam. And obviously that's what you need. The Step 1, Step 2 is what you need to then go and do your specialization in the United States. So yeah, there is that extra course. Our curriculum generally is not just because it's taught in English, because that's not enough to say, to define it as international, but it actually is, the curricula is actually based, what with visiting professors and the experience of the professors, even the Italian ones teaching abroad, it is very sort of US / UK, they say Anglo-Saxon inspired, and there is that strong connection you would find a bit more facilitated if you were to go and do your specialization in one of those countries.
Right. Now, this next question is an interesting one, and I'm hopeful that Reshma and you will be able to answer it. After obtaining a degree at Cattolica, would graduates be integrated in working at the Ospedale Gemelli or other Italian hospitals? So I presume what you're asking there is, can I get a job at Gemelli after I've graduated? Or are you asking, will I be doing placements at Gemelli as part of my degree?
I'll go with what I know. You're definitely doing your experience in the Gemelli. I mean, that's the big plus of having the hospital on campus that we're affiliated with. So, that for sure, you're getting your experience in a top notch. And what I've been told from students of medicine is that a lot of students actually have chosen Cattolica because of the Gemelli, because it offers such a wide range of specialization, because not a lot of hospitals do a lot of, big range of specialization. So no, I'm not at all worried about you getting that experience there. As regards to getting a job, I'm afraid, I'm definitely, I pledge a bit of ignorance there as well, but I'm afraid that one thing you can't get away from is if you're going to do a specialization, you're going to have to do one heck of a nasty exam for specialization, regardless of whether you want to go to Gemelli or to any other hospital within Italy. The Italian medical system will require graduates to do a specialization based, of course, on whatever it is that they want to specialize in.
Right. And Reshma, have you actually done any placement? Well, you haven't really done any of your placements yet, have you? But have you spent much time in Polyclinic or Gemelli at this hospital?
No. So for us, well, we were supposed to start clinical medicine this year, actually, but we don't know how that's going to work out. So this year would be the year where I'm there the most, but usually I'm just there at the library most of the time. But I know that after graduation, that you do have to write an exam that Aishah has mentioned. And then from there onwards is when you can do your specialty and continue your education or whatever you plan on doing after. As far as that, that's all I know, but pretty much that's basically the basis of it.
Yeah, we can probably ask if you give us, shoot us an email, we can, give us the adequate time. We can probably ask around with maybe some 6th-year students, some final-year students. That's something that we can try and tackle a bit more in detail.
Right. Okay. This next question, we've already answered it, but it's asking, is the UK considered part of the EU when applying to all medical schools in Italy? To the best of my knowledge, yes, but who knows? And it might shift, but I have no idea what the public universities are doing. You're just going to have to watch that space, I'm afraid. It's going to change. Inevitably, it will change. Precisely when it changes, I don't know. Right. One final question on financial support, the scholarship that you mentioned, Aishah. Is there anything you can do to improve your chances of getting it? Does it make a difference what nationality you are, your financial circumstances, if you apply early enough? I guess none of those things really.
So there is a deadline. So, you could be the most, of course. So yes, follow deadlines. It is your financial income. In the first year, they do look at your income, or I would say your family's income. And they're going to look at what property you own and your family nucleus. Are you with a single parent or divorced, or how many siblings you have, what property you have. And they do require all those papers, all your tax declaration forms, to be translated and submitted. It's not a piece of cake. You've got to get that sorted. And in there, it's not merit-based in the first year. It is from the second year. So even if you were in dire need of financial aid, but if by second year you failed all your exams, obviously they're not, that's you're not going to be eligible. But, again, if you email me, I can give you the link. It is in English with the details. So you can start familiarizing yourself if you're serious about that. But again, obviously I don't know anything about, what your situation is like. But what I can really say from the bottom of my heart, removing my, recruiter hat off is, really think about it. When we have an honest chat, we can do a Zoom call just for that. But when we have an honest chat, is look at your finances carefully and always prepare for the worst. If you apply and you get it, fantastic, you can relax a bit. But if you don't get it, you've got to have option B ready.
Right. Thank you, Aishah. Now we have 4 remaining questions. They're all from the same person. 2 of them I'm going to answer very, very quickly, and then I'm going to throw the others over to you, Aishah. Are there exam venues in Ireland? Well, we don't know if there are exam venues, full stop, at the moment. Look, realistically, it's going to be online this year. If I were putting money on it, I'd say it's going to be online this year, wouldn't you?
Don't know. Don't know. For EUs especially, they may simply say instead of going online that we wait and it gets pushed April, May. I hope not, but as far as June, it could. This information will be disclosed from upper management, from it. And because don't forget, we're talking government paper. This is not an internal Cattolica choice necessarily. Like, this has to all go government approved on when it comes to all these exams, the competition calls and entrance exams. It could be online, it could be in presence. One thing is for sure, we're not going to open up an island this year. I don't know if you're for 2021 intake. Could be for 2022. We've got to see on a couple of factors, but for 2021, if you're going to be doing it in presence, I'm guessing London will be your closest option, but obviously, if you want to come over here, we'll welcome, but I'm guessing there's going to be a little less travel restrictions with London, hopefully.
Well, yeah, we'll wait and see. But
hopefully.
London, Milan or Rome, I'd say.
Yeah.
Requirements for the Irish Leaving Cert. I think we've already covered this. The problem with the Leaving Cert, correct me if I'm wrong here, isn't really a pass mark of it, but let's put it this way. I know you need like 720 odds to get into medicine in Ireland. I mean, I'm giving you a rough ballpark figure that we use when we are dealing with dental students, because we're getting floods of those from Ireland at the moment. I would say if you're getting above about 450 and you've got H1s, H2s in your biology, chemistry, you're going to be a sensible enough candidate. Let's put it that way. But basically, you just have to pass it. Like we were saying before, the entrance exam will be the filter, not what you got in the Leaving Cert. You must have a high school leaving qualification, but that's it. Okay.
Just a note, Mark, as well, with the word passing. I think genuinely, if any of us started right now in this moment the entrance exam, we may pass it because the pass mark is very low. The key point here in getting an offer, or when you get an offer, is where you score in the ranking. There's a subtle difference. So you may pass the exam, but you may be position, I don't know, EU ranking 325.
Right.
No, you've passed it, but you're not going to get an offer, right? So you need to try and be in the top 30 for EU students, top 30 places. Granted, not everyone's going to accept their offer. We will offer the first 30 students an offer. We'll make that. Some of them, for whatever reason, may not accept. We're going to go down the ranking, but you want to be as high up there as you possibly can.
Yeah. And I mean, I have seen this in the past where, well, and again, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Aisha, where the advertised pass mark might be, even something like 35, 40%.
Correct, yeah.
But in reality, when you look at what people, particularly on the EU list, have had to score to get in, more like 70, and on the non-EU list, it's typically been a little bit easier, but again, everything is movable there. And those figures, I'm going from memory there.
The pass mark is now 15 out of 65. That's what I'm saying. Like, you probably wouldn't even have to try much. And most students are good students. They get, they pass with at least 15 out of 65. 2 attempts at a simulator, you probably can manage that. But what you really need is to be, again, to score as high up there in the ranking, and competition is tough, and we have hundreds of applicants. So that again is why, even though you may have time to apply, don't wait, because the longer you wait to apply, the less time you have to practice. So help yourself by applying early and getting to practice more.
Yeah. So this question actually came in while we were discussing it. What is the pass mark, or what would be a top score? The pass mark is almost an irrelevance. It's like, if you don't hit the pass mark, you're not even in the game, but you're not even in the game if you hit the pass mark. You have to be hitting roughly the kind of score that people need to get in, which, based on what I've just said, 15 out of 65 keeps you in the game, but 40, 45, even higher is what you're going to need something higher. That's for sure.
I would say try to be within the top 100. Experience says, especially with COVID and whatnot, dropout rates at the time of confirmation can be high. So, if you're in a good chance, it's not guaranteed, but if it's a good chance, if you can start to be in the top 100 EU rankings, there's a good chance you're going to get an offer, even if it is maybe further down in summer. Yeah.
All right, we've now had a personal question come in from Reshma. And again, this is it's not really relevant because the exam has changed so much, but do you know how you scored in the test? I mean, do you know what the pass mark was and what you actually got? Can you remember that?
I honestly can't. I can't
Reshma
remember.
did a different exam as well.
I did a very different exam than yours, than the ones that you guys are going to be taking. For us, we didn't even, I don't remember, I don't think we had a lot of people even apply. So even the pool of people wasn't that much. And they're obviously increasing year by year from what I'm understanding. They're getting up there. But for us, we didn't have the science-based questions. So it was 100 questions for us in 100 minutes. And it was all the logical reasoning, from what I remember, numerical reasoning. We had reading comprehension for 20 questions where we had to read passages and answer the questions. And it feels like forever ago, to be quite honest with you. It feels like 10 years ago.
Don't worry, I think it was unfairly putting you on the spot.
Yeah, but it's a good question.
Relevant to the situation we now face. But there are a couple of questions just on this entrance exam. The online simulator that is there, that gives you answers, but doesn't give you explanations. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, go on. Review. Reshma first.
We're fighting. No, so for me, it did not give me any explanations. I think what you get after you do put the money in and you pay the fees, you get a set of questions. I think for us, it was 3,000 questions. And we had the simulator. So all I did was I did that for, like, I did a couple of those every single day and really just worked on managing my time, especially because I don't think you guys would have reading comprehension from what I saw in the slide, but I had reading comprehension. So reading a passage does not take a minute, right? So it takes some time. So if anything, if you are going to use a simulator, I think more than looking forward to like answering the questions and stuff is really just figure out how to manage your time. 65 minutes is not that long of a period of time, right? So really just do the questions you know how to do for sure off the bat, and then go back and do the questions that you couldn't do or you need some time doing. So that's what I would say about the simulator.
Good stuff.
That is a good point. I just wanted to, because it's the new test, the simulator will show you right and wrong answers and sort of where you need to obviously focus on, which is where you're doing worst in, obviously. But there is the 3,000 question PDF that we have. I'm going to put the link on the chat right now. That is still there. That hasn't changed. And that is a fantastic way, of course. And there is a guide to logic exercises, because especially from what I remember, A-levels, and even I think the IB, we don't do a lot of logic-based stuff. We do more subject stuff. So, use that guide. It is precious. And I'm going to put the link on the chat so you can open that up.
And I will add that to the summary email that I send out tomorrow as well, just so that you've got everything in one place about some of the resources I want to refer to. Last question now. I say last question. If anybody else has got other questions they want to ask, you have to put them into the Q&A before I've finished answering this one, because once it's done, we're going to hang up. The guidelines for the entrance exam state no rough work or notes allowed. How is it possible to do some of the maths and physics questions? Also, there are no calculators. Forgive me if that's too technical for either of you to answer, but I would imagine the terms and conditions of the exam are exactly what they are, and you have to just deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say you can definitely have a chat with our medical admission officer, and he knows how to get an answer to that. And also simulator. I mean, of course, you're like, yeah, I'm home. I could cheat by using a calculator. That defeats the point of a simulator, because it has to simulate what you're going to do on the day of the test. We could also get you to talk to some students who've done the exam and see how that goes. But, these are studied by people who are professional in giving tests. So, feel free to ping that, via email and how to prepare for it. But I think, also, I dare say the test is not for everyone. All right. That's part of the point. It has to be tough. There's got to be a grueling selection, because the program is so grueling. So fair enough question.
Yeah, you're not being singled out, and you're not going to be the only person who isn't allowed to do this. But, if the rules and regs are quite clear that there is no calculators and no rough paper and all the rest of it, that is the reality.
Have a check on the online simulator and you'll see. Maybe they're not as bad as you think. Maybe you're really good with numbers. So, you can see also through the resources that, Mark's going to be sending out tomorrow and I've just put in the chat, and you'll see that there are the math questions there as well.
Right. Well,
all right. We've gone well overboard with time. So that was good. Love questions.
The questions just kept coming and coming. But hopefully, for those of you who stuck it out for the entire session, you will have found that useful. It will have given you a very, very clear indication as to what Cattolica is like to be a student, and also what it's like to get your chances of getting in and all the rest of it. So I'm going to wrap it up there, because this has been a lengthy session. Thank you very much, Reshma, for your input. Thank you, Aishah, for joining us. But if you've got any last words either of you'd like to say, now is your chance.
I'd like to say congratulations to all of you. I mean, regardless of, which exam you sit and what you pass and which university you join, just the fact that, I think it's been clear as never before in the last 12 months that, this is a subject that we need people to be competent in, and we need it. Health comes first. So it is a life choice. It's a life decision. So congratulations on your ambition, and I genuinely wish you the very best.
Okay, and we did just have one very, very quick question coming in saying, is it like the UCAT, the exam? It's got more in common to the BMAT, let's be honest. That's all I'm going to say about that. And Reshma, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Good luck, guys, with everything. And I hope that you guys, as well as your families, are all doing well and you guys are safe. So if you guys do apply and you guys get accepted and you guys join us, come and say hi if you see me around. I'll be running around town. So if you guys see me, come and say hi.
Yes, I think that's a nice way to close up. Let's hope to meet in Rome in person.
Yes.
Let's say that, and let's say good night as well. Thank you very much for sticking with us. Like I said, we'll put this session on YouTube. We'll send you out some resources tomorrow. But yeah, thanks very much for your questions and your input. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.